The moment Deanna Everhart saw the white sand beach from the seaplane window, she knew something had gone terribly right in her life for once. After 6 months of grueling shifts at the hospital, the double shifts that left her feet aching and her heart heavy from loss after loss in the ICU, this week alone on a private island was exactly what her doctor friend had prescribed when she won it in that charity raffle. The pilot helped her down onto the wooden dock, her single suitcase in hand, and she breathed in the salt air like it was medicine. The house manager who met her at the dock looked confused. "Miss Everhart," he said, checking his tablet twice. "I'm sorry, but there seems to be some kind of mistake." Deanna's stomach dropped. "What kind of mistake? The island is already occupied this week. Mr. Callahan Irving and his family booked it 6 months ago. But I have confirmation right here." Deanna pulled out her phone, showing him the email. "The Sanderson Foundation raffle. I won fair and square. It says I have the island for the entire week starting today." The manager, whose name tag read Martin, looked genuinely distressed. "Miss, I believe you, but Mr. Irving also has legitimate confirmation. The foundation must have double booked somehow. This has never happened before. So what do? I took vacation time. I cannot go back to Miami and pretend this did not happen. I need this break." Deanna hated how her voice cracked, but it was true. She had been running on empty for months. Martin hesitated. "The island has 2 main residences. The main house where Mr. Irving is staying with his family and the guest cottage about a quarter-mile down the beach. It has 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, everything you would need. Perhaps you could stay there, and we could work out the confusion." Before Deanna could answer, a figure appeared on the path from the main house. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that looked like he had been running his hands through it, and shoulders that filled out his linen shirt in a way that made Deanna very aware she was still in her travel clothes. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to question whether he belonged somewhere. "Martin, what is going on? I heard the plane." His voice was deep, authoritative but not unkind. "Mr. Irving, this is Miss Everhart. There has been a booking error with the foundation. Both parties have legitimate reservations for the island this week." Callahan Irving looked at Deanna, and she felt the assessment in his dark brown eyes. She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. "I won this trip in a charity raffle," Deanna said directly. "I am a nurse. I work in intensive care and I have not had a real break in over a year. I am not trying to intrude on your family time, but I also have every right to be here." Something shifted in his expression. "I see you, nurse." "Yes." He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "The cottage is yours. Martin, make sure Miss Everhart has everything she needs. If the foundation made an error, it is not her fault." He looked back at Deanna. "The island is big enough for both of us. Just stay on your side of the beach and we will stay on ours." It was not exactly welcoming, but it was fair. Deanna nodded. "Thank you." Callahan walked back toward the main house without another word, and Martin let out a relieved breath. "That went better than expected," Martin said. "Mr. Irving is usually very particular about his privacy." "I will not bother anyone," Deanna promised. "I plan to sleep, read, and remember what it feels like to not smell like antiseptic." The cottage was beautiful, all white wood and blue accents with windows that opened to the ocean breeze. Deanna unpacked her modest suitcase, changed into shorts and a tank top, and stood on the deck watching the sunset paint the water in shades of orange and pink. For the first time in months, she felt her shoulders relax. She did not see Callahan or his family that first evening. She made pasta in the cottage kitchen, poured herself wine from the fully stocked bar, and fell asleep to the sound of waves around 9 o'clock. The next morning, Diana woke before dawn, habit from years of early shifts. She pulled on her swimsuit and walked down to the beach, planning to swim before the day got too hot. The water was perfectly clear, bathwater warm, and she floated on her back watching the sky turn from purple to gold. "You are up early." Diana startled, finding her footing in the chest-deep water. Callahan stood at the edge of the beach in running shorts and nothing else. In the morning light, she could see he was younger than she had initially thought, maybe early 30s like her, with the kind of build that came from actually using your body, not just a gym membership. "Force of habit," Diana said, suddenly very aware of how little her swimsuit covered. "I usually start work at 6. How long have you been a nurse?" 8 years. I see you for the last 5. Callahan walked into the water until he was waist-deep, a respectable distance from her. "That must be hard work." "It is." Diana did not elaborate. People usually did not want to hear about the reality of her job. "My mother was in ICU last year," Callahan said quietly. "Heart surgery. The nurses were the ones who really saved her life. The surgeons get the glory, but the nurses did everything that mattered." Diana felt something warm spread through her chest. "How is she now?" "Good, stubborn as ever. She is here actually with my father and my sister. This trip is kind of a celebration of her recovery." "Then I really am intruding." Diana felt guilt wash over her. "I should not be here." "No." Callahan's voice was firm. "You won that raffle fairly. The foundation screwed up, not you. Besides, the island has plenty of room. I was just being territorial yesterday. I apologize." Diana studied him, seeing the sincerity in his expression. "Apology accepted. And I am glad your mother is doing better. What is your name?" "Your first name." "Diana. Callahan. Though most people call me Cal." He smiled then, a real smile that changed his whole face, made him look less like a stern millionaire and more like someone she might actually want to know. "Since we are sharing an island, we should probably be on first-name basis." "Probably," Diana agreed, smiling back. They talked in the water for another 20 minutes, easy conversation about nothing important. He asked about Miami and she asked about where he was from. "San Francisco," he said, though he traveled constantly for work. He did not specify what that work was, and Diana did not push. When she finally headed back to the cottage to shower and make breakfast, she felt lighter than she had in months. Over the next few days, Diana fell into a rhythm. She would wake early, swim, read on her deck, nap in the afternoon heat, and watch the sunsets with a glass of wine. She saw Callahan each morning in the water. It became an unspoken routine, meeting at dawn to swim and talk before the day truly started. She learned he ran a commercial real estate development company that his grandfather had started. She learned he had been engaged once, but it ended badly. She learned he loved terrible action movies and could quote The Princess Bride from memory. He learned she grew up in Tennessee, that she had put herself through nursing school working 3 jobs, that she had wanted to be a doctor but could not afford medical school. He learned she was terrified of spiders but would walk into any medical emergency without flinching. He learned she sang old country songs when she cooked. On the 4th day, Diana met his family by accident. She had walked further down the beach than usual, looking for shells, and nearly collided with an older woman coming around the bend. "Oh goodness," the woman said, laughing. "I did not see you there. I am so sorry." Diana recognized her immediately from Callahan's description. "You must be Mrs. Irving. Please call me Margaret. And you must be Diana, the nurse who won the raffle. Callahan has told us about you." "Has he?" Diana felt her cheeks warm. "Only good things, I promise." Margaret linked her arm through Diana's like they were old friends. "Walk with me." My husband insists I take these daily walks, but they are so boring alone. Deanna found herself strolling the beach with Callahan's mother, listening to stories about his childhood, about his sister Charlotte, who was a marine biologist, currently studying something complicated involving coral reefs, about the surgery that had nearly killed her last year. The nurses were angels, Margaret said, truly. One of them held my hand through the worst pain and told me about her own mother's recovery. It gave me hope when I had none. She looked at Deanna. You do important work. I hope you know that. Some days it feels important, Deanna admitted. Other days it just feels impossible. Those are the days that prove how strong you are. They talked until Diana's stomach reminded her she had skipped lunch. Margaret invited her to dinner at the main house, and Deanna started to decline, but Margaret was insistent. Callahan will want you there, she said with a knowing smile. He has not stopped talking about you since you arrived. Dinner was on the main house's enormous deck, with Margaret, her husband Robert, who was quiet but kind, Charlotte, who was brilliant and funny, and Callahan, who could not seem to stop looking at Deanna. She wore the one nice dress she had packed, a simple blue sundress, and his eyes went dark when he saw her. You look beautiful, he said quietly when she arrived. You look surprised, Deanna teased. Not surprised, just having trouble remembering how to speak. The dinner was relaxed and warm, the kind of family meal Deanna had not experienced since leaving Tennessee. They asked about her work, really listening to her answers, not flinching from the hard parts. Robert told terrible dad jokes. Charlotte showed Deanna pictures of fish she could not name. Margaret watched Deanna and Callahan with obvious delight. After dinner, Callahan walked Deanna back to the cottage under a sky full of stars. Your family is wonderful, Deanna said. They like you. My mother already wants to adopt you. She is easy to like. Deanna paused at the cottage steps. Thank you for sharing your dinner and your island. Deanna. Callahan caught her hand. This is going to sound crazy because we have known each other less than a week, but I feel like I have been waiting to meet you my whole life. Diana's breath caught. She felt it too, this pull toward him that defied logic. That does sound crazy. I know, but that does not make it less true. He was close enough now that she could feel the heat of his body, smell his cologne mixed with salt air. When he cupped her face with one hand, she leaned into the touch without thinking. Can I kiss you? He asked. Yes. The kiss started soft, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. Then Deanna's hands found his shirt, pulling him closer, and Callahan made a sound low in his throat that sent heat through her entire body. His arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her onto the steps so they were the same height, and the kiss deepened into something that made Diana forget her own name. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Callahan rested his forehead against hers. I need to tell you something, he said, something I should have mentioned before. Diana's stomach tightened with anxiety. What? I am not just in real estate. My company is Irving Development. We do commercial properties all over the world. I am the CEO. I have been since my father retired 5 years ago. He pulled back to look at her. I am telling you because I do not want there to be secrets between us, and because people sometimes act differently when they know about the money. Diana processed this. Irving Development was huge, a company even she had heard of, which meant Callahan was not just wealthy, he was extremely wealthy. Millionaire probably did not even cover it. Why are you telling me this? She asked carefully. Because in 2 days we both leave this island, and I need to know if what I am feeling is real. If it could be real in the actual world, not just this bubble. His hands were still on her waist. And I need you to know what dating me would actually mean. Dating you, Diana repeated. If you want to, I know it is fast. I know we barely know each other. But Deanna, I have never felt this way about anyone, not even close. Deanna thought about the past 4 days. The easy conversations, the laughter, the way he looked at her like she was the most fascinating person he had ever met. The way she felt completely herself around him, no performance, no walls. I do not care about your money, she said. I care that you ask Martin how his daughter's soccer game went. I care that you remember my stories about my patients. I care that you make me laugh and that talking to you feels as natural as breathing. So, is that a yes? That is a yes to dating. But Cal, I live in Miami. You live in San Francisco. I work insane hours. You travel constantly. How would this even work? I will figure it out, he promised. We will figure it out, together. He kissed her again, slower this time, sweet and full of promise. When Deanna finally went inside the cottage, she was smiling so hard her face hurt. The next 2 days passed too quickly. Deanna spent most of her time with Callahan, swimming in the mornings, exploring the island together, having long meals with his family. They talked about everything, learning each other's histories, sharing dreams and fears and the 1,000 small details that make up a life. Callahan told her about the pressure of running a family company, the expectations, the constant travel that left him feeling rootless. Deanna told him about losing patience, about the emotional toll of her work, about feeling like she was always giving pieces of herself away until nothing was left. You need to take better care of yourself, Callahan said as they watched the sunset on their last night. You cannot pour from an empty cup, I know. But there is always another emergency, another person who needs help. And there always will be. But Deanna, if you burn out completely, you will not be able to help anyone. He pulled her against his chest, his arms secure around her. Promise me you will take real time off. Promise me you will put yourself first sometimes. I will try. Not good enough. Promise me. I promise. Deanna turned in his arms to face him. Are you always this bossy? Only when it comes to people I love. The word hung in the air between them. Love. It was too soon, impossibly soon, but Deanna felt it too, this overwhelming certainty that he was important, that this was important. Say that again, she whispered. I love you. Callahan said it clearly, no hesitation. I know it is crazy, I know we just met, but I love you, Deanna Everhart. I love you too. The words felt right, felt true. This is insane. Completely insane, he kissed her. But I am not letting you go. They stayed on the beach until the stars came out, talking about logistics. Callahan had business in New York next week, but would fly to Miami the weekend after. Deanna would request more consistent scheduling so they could plan visits. They would video call every day. They would make it work because the alternative, not trying, was unacceptable. The flight back to reality was hard. Deanna said goodbye to Margaret, Charlotte, and Robert first, all of them hugging her like family. Margaret made Deanna promise to visit San Francisco. Charlotte gave her a book about marine biology that Deanna would probably never understand but would cherish anyway. Callahan flew back on the same seaplane. Their fingers intertwined the entire flight to the mainland. At the airport, they had to separate, his flight to San Francisco leaving from a different terminal than her flight to Miami. 2 weeks, Callahan said, holding her face in his hands. Then I will be in Miami and we will have a proper date. Dinner, dancing, whatever you want. I just want you, Deanna said. You have me, for as long as you want me. The kiss goodbye was bittersweet, full of longing and promise. Deanna watched him walk away, fighting the urge to run after him, to not let this end. Back in Miami, reality hit hard. Her apartment felt smaller, dirtier, lonelier than she remembered. Work was immediately overwhelming, back-to-back shifts with too many patients and not enough hands. She collapsed into bed after her first shift back, exhausted in a way that went bone deep. But then her phone rang. Callahan's face filled the screen, and suddenly everything felt manageable. They talked every day, sometimes for hours, sometimes just for a few minutes between his meetings and her shifts. He sent her flowers at the hospital, ridiculous expensive arrangements that made her coworkers tease her mercilessly. She sent him photos of Miami sunsets, trying to share her world with him. 2 weeks felt like 2 months, but finally, Deanna was standing in front of her bathroom mirror, getting ready for their date. She had splurged on a new dress, dark green and fitted, with heels that made her legs look good even after a 12-hour shift the day before. Callahan picked her up at 7, stepping out of a sleek black car looking unfairly handsome in a suit. His eyes went wide when he saw her. "You are going to kill me," he said, pulling her close. "You know that, right? That is the plan." He took her to a restaurant she could never afford on her own, the kind of place with a months-long waiting list. But the staff greeted Callahan by name, led them to a private table with an ocean view. Deanna felt out of her depth for about 10 seconds, until Callahan took her hand and smiled at her like she was the only person in the world. "I missed you," he said simply. "I missed you too. So much." They talked through dinner, sharing a bottle of wine, stealing bites from each other's plates. Deanna told him about a patient she had helped save, the rush of victory that made all the hard days worth it. Callahan told her about a deal that was falling apart, the frustration of negotiating with people who did not listen. After dinner, they walked on the beach, Deanna barefoot with her heels in one hand, Callahan's jacket around her shoulders against the cool breeze. "I have been thinking," Callahan said, "about how to make this work long-term. Me too. My company has an office in Miami. It is small, mostly handles Florida projects, but it exists. I could spend more time there, oversee things directly instead of remotely." Deanna stopped walking. "You would move to Miami, partially. I would still need to be in San Francisco regularly, and I travel for work anyway. But I could base myself here, be with you more often." He turned to face her fully. "Unless you would rather I did not. I do not want to pressure you or move too fast. Cal, you told me you loved me after 4 days. I think we are past moving too fast." "Fair point," he grinned. "So what do you think?" "I think I want you here. I think I want to fall asleep next to you and wake up next to you and have boring, normal days where we just exist together." "That sounds perfect." He kissed her there on the beach, with the waves crashing and the lights of the city behind them, and Diana felt like her life was finally coming together instead of falling apart. The next few months were a blur of adjustment. Callahan found a house in Coral Gables, beautiful and way too big for one person but perfect for weekend visits. Diana met his business partners, attended company events as his girlfriend, learned to navigate the world of wealth and influence that was his normal. It was not always easy. Deanna struggled with the attention that came with dating someone prominent. Photographers caught them at restaurants. A gossip website ran an article speculating about their relationship. She received messages from strangers, some supportive, some vicious. "I am not built for this," Deanna said after a particularly bad day when a tabloid had implied she was a gold digger. "I just want to do my job and live my life. I do not want to be photographed every time we go to dinner." "I know. I am sorry." Callahan looked genuinely distressed. "I can hire security if it would help, or we can be more private, stay in more." "I do not want to hide." "Then we do not hide. We live our lives and we ignore the noise. Anyone who actually knows you would never believe that garbage." Diana leaned against him on the couch, exhausted. "This is harder than I thought it would be. Do you want to stop, us I mean?" "No." The word was immediate, certain. "No, I love you. I just need to figure out how to deal with everything else." We will figure it out together. And they did, slowly. Deanna learned to ignore the cameras, to brush off the comments. Callahan made sure his security team kept a respectful distance, but was there if needed. They found restaurants with private dining rooms, beaches that were secluded, ways to carve out normalcy in an abnormal situation. Work remained Diana's anchor, the place where she was just Deanna the nurse, not Deanna the girlfriend of some rich CEO. She was good at her job, great even, and that mattered more than any headline. 6 months in, Callahan asked Deanna to move in with him. They were having breakfast in his Miami house, the one that had slowly filled with her things anyway. Half her closet migrated to his bedroom, her books scattered across every surface. "You are already here most nights," he pointed out, "and your apartment is terrible. I have seen prisons with better lighting. It is not that bad. Deanna, there was a cockroach the size of my hand in your kitchen last week. That was an anomaly. Move in with me, please." He took her hand across the table. "I want to wake up with you every morning. I want this to be our home, not just my house you visit." Deanna wanted that too. She had been hesitant to give up her apartment, her independence, but the truth was she hated the nights she spent there without him. She hated the silence, the emptiness. She loved the mornings in his house, making coffee in his enormous kitchen, stealing his shirts to wear around the house. "Okay," she said, "but I pay part of the bills. Deanna, you do not have to do that." "Yes, I do. I will not be a kept woman. I work, I contribute, or I do not move in." Callahan knew better than to argue when she used that tone. "Fine, you can pay the utility bills. Half the mortgage too. The house is paid off. Then I pay for groceries and my part of insurance and anything else I can contribute to. Cal, I need this. I need to feel like a partner, not a dependent." He stood, walked around the table, and pulled her into his arms. "You are a partner. In every way that matters, but I understand and I respect it. We will work out something fair." Moving in together was an adjustment. They had to learn each other's rhythms, negotiate space and time, figure out how to fight fair when disagreements came up. Callahan was used to being in control, making unilateral decisions. Deanna was used to complete independence, not answering to anyone. But they worked at it, communicated, compromised. Callahan learned to ask before making plans that involved both of them. Deanna learned to let him take care of her sometimes, to accept help without feeling weak. They traveled together when Deanna could get time off, long weekends in California to visit his family, a week in the Caribbean where they did nothing but swim and sleep and make love. Margaret loved Deanna, called her weekly to chat, sent her care packages full of homemade cookies and articles about nursing she found interesting. Charlotte visited Miami to study the reefs and stayed with them, filling the house with energy and constant chatter about fish. Deanna loved having her there, loved feeling like part of Callahan's family in truth, not just theory. A year after they met, Callahan proposed. They were back on the island, the private island where they had met, the foundation having gifted them a week there as an apology for the original booking error. They were swimming at dawn, their routine from that first week, when Callahan pulled Deanna into deeper water. "I have been waiting all year to ask you this," he said. "Ask me what? Marry me." He produced a ring from somewhere, a simple band with a single perfect diamond. "I know we said we would take things slow. I know you wanted to wait. But Deanna, I cannot imagine my life without you." "I do not want to imagine it. Marry me." Deanna was crying, salt water and tears mixing on her face. "You are supposed to be on one knee. We are in the ocean. Details." But she was laughing now, nodding. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger there in the water, then kissed her until they both forgot which way was up. They spent the rest of the week planning, talking about what kind of wedding they wanted, where they would live, when they wanted kids. "I want at least 3, Callahan said as they lay on the beach. 3 kids or 3 houses. Kids. Though I would also like a place in San Francisco so we can be near my family sometimes. 3 kids is a lot of college tuition. Good thing I can afford it." Deanna smacked his arm. "Do not be smug." "I am not being smug, I am being practical. I want a big family, Deanna. I want chaos and noise and little feet running everywhere. I want what my parents had. I want that too." Deanna had never let herself really imagine it before, the whole domestic dream. Her life had been work, survival, making it through each day. But with Callahan, she could see it. The house full of kids, the family dinners, growing old together. They got married 4 months later, a small ceremony on the beach in Miami with just family and close friends. Deanna wore a simple white dress, flowers in her hair, no shoes. Callahan wore linen pants and a white shirt, looking at Deanna like she had hung the moon. Margaret cried through the entire ceremony. Robert gripped Callahan's shoulder with obvious pride. Charlotte was Diana's maid of honor, holding her bouquet and making jokes to keep Deanna from being too nervous. Diana's parents came from Tennessee, her mother sobbing happily, her father gruff but clearly pleased. Her sister was there with her 3 kids, Diana's nieces and nephews who ran wild on the beach before and after the ceremony. The vows they wrote themselves. Callahan promised to love Diana's stubborn independence, to support her career even when it meant lonely nights, to always make her laugh when things got hard. Deanna promised to let him take care of her sometimes, to build a life with him that honored both their dreams, to love him through every challenge. When they kissed as husband and wife, their family and friends cheered, and Diana felt happiness so complete it was almost frightening. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Italy, wandering through Rome and Florence and the Amalfi Coast, eating too much pasta and drinking too much wine. They talked about the future, about where they wanted to be in 5 years, 10 years, the rest of their lives. "I want you to cut back at work," Callahan said as they watched the sunset from their hotel balcony in Positano. "Not quit. I know you would never quit, but maybe go part-time. You are exhausted all the time, Deanna. I worry about you." "I worry about me too," Deanna admitted. "I love my work, but you are right. I am burning out, I can feel it." "So what do you want to do?" "Maybe 3 days a week instead of 5. Focus on mentoring new nurses, training them instead of always being on the floor. I could do consulting work, help hospitals improve their ICU protocols." "That sounds perfect and sustainable. It also sounds like less money, Deanna." Callahan pulled her into his lap. "We have more money than we could spend in 3 lifetimes. Please stop worrying about finances." "I cannot help it. I spent so many years broke, working multiple jobs. It is hard to feel secure even now. I know, but you are secure, we are secure, and I need you healthy and happy more than I need you working yourself into the ground." Deanna kissed him, soft and slow. "You are very wise for a real estate mogul. I have my moments." When they returned from Italy, Deanna gave notice that she was cutting back to part-time. Her manager was disappointed but understanding, offering her the training and consulting position they had been trying to fill for months. The pay was less but still good, and the schedule was infinitely better. The change was immediate and profound. Deanna had time to breathe, to think, to be a person instead of just a nurse. She started running in the mornings with Callahan, took a painting class just for fun, learned to cook more than just basic sustenance meals. She was happier, lighter, more present. And when Callahan traveled for work, which he still did regularly, Diana had energy left to miss him instead of just collapsing into sleep. A year into their marriage, Deanna got pregnant. They had been trying casually, not stressing about it but hoping. When the test came back positive, Deanna sat on the bathroom floor crying happy tears until Callahan came home and found her. "What is wrong?" He dropped to his knees beside her, hands cupping her face. "Nothing is wrong. Everything is perfect." Deanna showed him the test. "We are having a baby." Callahan's face went through about 15 emotions in 3 seconds before landing on pure joy. He pulled Deanna into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe, and she felt his tears on her neck. "We are having a baby," he repeated, like he could not quite believe it. "We are having a baby." They told his family that weekend, flying to San Francisco for a visit. Margaret screamed, actually screamed with excitement. Robert got misty-eyed. Charlotte immediately started planning elaborate aunt activities. Deanna's family came to visit the following month, her mother crying as she hugged Deanna, her father looking terrified but pleased. Her sister gave her endless advice, her nieces and nephews excited about a new cousin. The pregnancy was relatively easy, some morning sickness in the first trimester, but nothing terrible. Deanna worked up until the 7th month, then switched to consulting from home. Callahan was attentive to the point of being overbearing, constantly checking on her, bringing her strange food combinations she craved, reading pregnancy books like they were instruction manuals. "You need to relax," Deanna said when he woke her up at 2 in the morning to ask if she was breathing okay. "The baby is fine. I am fine. I just want to make sure. Cal, you cannot check on me every 5 minutes for the next 2 months. You will lose your mind." "I am already losing my mind." "You are growing a human. How are you so calm?" Deanna laughed, pulling him down beside her. "Because I do this for a living, remember? I know what to watch for. I promise I will tell you if something is wrong." "You promise?" "I promise." Their daughter was born on a perfect spring morning after 14 hours of labor that had Callahan looking more traumatized than Deanna. She came out screaming, all red face and tiny fists, and Deanna fell in love instantly, completely, in a way she had not known was possible. "She is perfect," Callahan whispered, holding his daughter for the first time with tears streaming down his face. "Deanna, she is perfect." They named her Caroline Margaret Irving after both grandmothers. She had Diana's nose and Callahan's dark hair, and she commanded their entire world from minute 1. The first few months were exhausting, a blur of feedings and diapers and very little sleep. But they navigated it together, Callahan taking paternity leave to be home, both of them figuring out this parenting thing in real time. Margaret visited constantly, helping with the baby, cooking meals, giving them breaks to sleep or shower or remember they were married. Charlotte flew in for a week, holding Caroline for hours while Deanna napped. Deanna's mother came for a month, teaching Deanna things her nursing training had not covered, reassuring her when anxiety struck at 3 in the morning. By the time Caroline was 6 months old, they had found a rhythm. Deanna went back to consulting part-time, working from home while Callahan was in the office. They hired a nanny for the days Deanna needed to be on site at hospitals, a kind older woman named Rosa who Caroline adored. "I want more," Callahan said one night as they watched Caroline sleep in her crib. "Is that crazy? She is only 6 months old and I already want more." "Not crazy, I want more too." Deanna leaned against him. "But let us wait until this one sleeps through the night consistently." "Deal, deal." They had their second child 2 years later, a boy they named Christopher Robert Irving. He was calmer than Caroline had been, easier in some ways, though 2 kids proved exponentially harder than one. Their third came 2 years after that, another girl, Delilah Rose Irving. By then they had the routine down, confident in their parenting even as the chaos increased. The house was always noisy, always full, exactly what Callahan had wanted. There were dance recitals and soccer games, school projects and skinned knees, birthday parties that seemed to involve half the neighborhood. Diana cut her consulting back even further, focusing on her family, writing articles about nursing instead of being on site as much. Callahan scaled back his travel, promoting trusted employees to handle more of the international work so he could be home for dinner most nights. They bought the house in San Francisco that Callahan had wanted, a beautiful Victorian near his parents, spending summers there so the kids could be close to their grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. They took family trips back to the island every year, the private island where they had met, teaching their kids to swim in the same waters where they had fallen in love. 10 years after they got married, Diana and Callahan renewed their vows in a simple ceremony on that island, surrounded by their children and family. Caroline was 10, Christopher 8, Delilah 6, all of them dressed in white and throwing flowers everywhere. "I still cannot believe that booking error happened," Margaret said at the reception dinner. "What are the odds? Fate," Callahan said, pulling Diana close. "It was always fate." Diana looked around at the life they had built, the family they had created, the love that had started with a chance meeting and grown into something that shaped her entire world. She thought about that exhausted nurse who had won a raffle, desperate for a break, and wanted to tell her that everything was about to change in the best possible way. "Thank you for not kicking me off your island," Diana said to Callahan. "Thank you for being stubborn enough to stay." He kissed her, soft and sweet, the kind of kiss that still made her knees weak after all these years. "I love you. I love you too." Their kids ran past chasing each other, shrieking with laughter. Margaret called after them to be careful near the water. Charlotte was trying to teach Christopher something about fish while he looked politely confused. Robert was showing Caroline how to skip stones, her face serious with concentration. Delilah was collecting shells, her small bucket overflowing. It was chaotic and loud and exactly perfect. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was finally quiet, Diana and Callahan walked on the beach under the stars, the same beach where they had met, where they had fallen in love, where they had promised to spend their lives together. "You ever regret it?" Diana asked. "The whole whirlwind romance thing, we barely knew each other." "Not for a single second." Callahan stopped, turning to face her in the moonlight. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me. This life we built, our kids, everything. It is more than I ever dreamed of." "Me too." Diana pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "I was so lost before you. I did not even realize how lost until you found me. We found each other." They stood there wrapped in each other's arms, the waves lapping at their feet, the future stretching out ahead of them full of possibility and promise. There would be challenges still, hard days and difficult moments, but they would face them together, the way they faced everything. 20 years after they met, Callahan and Diana were sitting on the deck of their Miami house, watching the sunset. Their kids were grown now, Caroline finishing medical school, Christopher in business school planning to join his father's company, Delilah in her first year at college studying environmental science like her aunt. "We did good," Diana said, her head on Callahan's shoulder. "We did great." He kissed her temple. "Want to know a secret? Always. I paid the foundation to double book the island that year. I saw your photo when you won the raffle and I had to meet you, so I bribed them to give me the same week." Diana sat up, staring at him. "You what?" "I know it sounds crazy." "It was crazy. But I looked at your picture. I read the little bio they published about you being a nurse, and something just told me you were important, that I needed to know you." Callahan Irving, Are you telling me our entire relationship is based on a lie, not a lie? A strategic intervention by fate. He was grinning, unrepentant. Are you mad? Deanna thought about it, about the life they had built, the love they shared, the family they had created. Then she started laughing, real laughter that came from her belly. I should be furious, she said. That is manipulative and borderline stalking behavior. But are you furious? No. Deanna cupped his face, seeing the man she loved, the partner who had stood beside her through everything. I am grateful, because you were right. We were meant to find each other. I have never been more right about anything in my life. He kissed her as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the same colors as that first sunset they watched together on the island all those years ago. Their story had started with a double-booked island and a millionaire who believed in fate. It continued through years of love and challenge and growth, through children and career changes and countless small moments that built a life. And it would keep going, Deanna knew, until they were old and gray and sitting on this same deck watching sunsets together. Because some love stories start with coincidence, some with strategy, but the best ones continue with choice. And every single day, Deanna and Callahan chose each other, chose this life, chose love. It was, Deanna thought as she settled back into her husband's arms, the best decision she had ever made. Their grandchildren started arriving a few years later, Caroline's twins first, then Christopher's son, then Delilah's daughter. The house filled with new noise, new chaos, new love. Deanna watched Callahan with the babies, as gentle and awestruck as he had been with their own children, and fell in love with him all over again. They still went to the island every year, sometimes just the two of them now that the kids were grown, recreating that first week when they had met. They swam at dawn, talked for hours, remembered what it felt like to be just Callahan and Deanna instead of Dad and Mom, Grandpa and Grandma. I would do it all again exactly the same way, Callahan said one morning in the water, 40 years after they had met in almost this exact spot. Even the part where I almost left the first day, Deanna asked. Especially that part. It made the staying so much sweeter. Deanna looked at the man she had loved for 40 years, his hair more gray now but his eyes still as warm, his smile still making her heart skip, and knew exactly what he meant. I love you, she said. I love you too. Always have, always will. And there on the private island where their story had begun, surrounded by water and sun and memories of a lifetime together, Deanna and Callahan kissed like they were 25 again and falling in love for the first time, proving that some things never change, never fade, never end. Their love was the forever kind, the kind that started with fate and continued with choice, the kind that built families and shaped lives and proved that sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places, all because of a double-booked island and a millionaire who believed in destiny.